Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 508, and today we're doing Battle in the Fates Voyage Onward Eternal Open. And so, as always, with the start of these best of 3 videos, if you want to see these decks, you can typically scroll backwards through the channel and catch all of these. We've got at least a couple of them here recently, but with the short week leading up into the Open, I didn't really get to cover everything, and I'm really not particularly happy with this lineup as it is, but nonetheless, you can at least catch a couple of these decks over the course of the past few videos. If you're wanting to skip ahead to the gameplay, today we're going to be playing a triple Bone Club lineup. We got Jack's Bone Club, we have Vayne Ornn Bone Club, and we have Zoe Bone Club, and we'll come in and talk about that just a little bit more. And so, as it always stands with these best of 3 opens in Eternal, I have a couple of core tenets that I really like to follow. Number one, I like to play decks that can stand up against aggro, and then I like decks that can stand up against P and Z based removal. And so, as our lineup stands, I really like units with 3 health. I really like a lot of cheap units. I like unit boosting so that we can get into combat with a random 2/2 unit, survive, and then 2 for 1 the next one. And then I really like that all of these cards typically stand up against P and Z based removal. So as you come out, do battle against a Seraphine pile, they need to use 2 spells to remove a unit. As you come out and play against some kind of Viktor Aphelios pile, they need to use 2 removal spells to take down one of your units. And then as far as the rest of the meta goes, it kind of is what it is. There's only so much stuff that you can really kind of game plan around, and that is the game plan that we typically look to do. Have a bunch of cheap cards so that you can stand up against the likes of Annie Jin and the random tokens decks, and then have units that are able to stand up against Mystic shots. And so, the next piece to the puzzle where I typically stand on these formats is whenever I'm doing battle on the ladder, I feel like the decks that we should be taking into battle in the open are decks that I'm able to climb the ladder with. As it stands, especially in Eternal, the format is super wide open. The ladder is kind of fucked in terms of the matchmaking, and you oftentimes get paired against random people that are like actual silver players. And so it feels like you should just be grinding out wins, even if your lineup isn't that spectacular. And that's ultimately what worries me about the lineup today. We can bring it up and talk about it a little bit more in just a moment, but it has a lot of the things that I really like in this format. All of our units, we have a lot of early plays to deal with the likes of Annie Jin. We have a lot of units that are capable of soaking Mystic shots. We have a lot of equipment so that we can fight through these grindy matches like Seraphine removal piles. But as the meta has really kind of shaped up over the course of the past couple of days, I can't make a decision as to whether or not this lineup is going to be kind of okay, given that people have just been testing their third deck over the past few days, or if our lineup is just going to get completely annihilated. Our decks are not good against the ramp decks, and the ramp decks are what people are typically trying to bring to beat things like Thresh and Nasus. And so the current kind of top of the meta at this moment would be like Nilah Twisted Fate, and then Thresh Nasus, and then decks trying to beat Thresh Nasus. And we're happy to play against the first 2. Well, we're happy to play against Nilah Twisted Fate. We're capable of beating Thresh Nasus, and then we are weak to those ramp decks. And so, given that it's like, the short meta, there's one less week before the Open because of the Worlds qualifier next week, I can't really tell if the people we're doing battle with just plan to play older decks and they're looking for a third. So, you're familiar with Viktor Aphelios from last season. You edit it a bit and you play it now. You're familiar with Draven Vision from the previous seasons. You just edit a little bit, you bring it in now. And then they're just looking for that kind of third deck. But over the course of the past few days, I've just been getting annihilated on the ladder by the ramp decks, which we just absolutely cannot beat. And so we'll see how this plays out. I'm really kind of hoping that those ramp decks we've been playing against are just really the kind of third deck meta, but I've also just been getting crushed on the ladder, which is a bit worrisome in terms of what this lineup can do. And so out of all of the open events since the competitive 2.0 started, this is the one that I felt like our lineup is just the absolute worst one. And so I really don't have particularly high expectations today. And so we'll see if we can grind out some wins. Maybe we'll be able to scratch out that top cut if things really fall our way. But right from the get-go, I'm not super confident in this lineup. I feel like if we had another week, we would be bringing like half of this lineup and be super tuned with it. But it just kind of is what it is. We're stuck being where we're at. And so, to bring up those individual decks, first and foremost, we have Jack's Bone Club. This is the one that you'd probably be most familiar with in terms of the Bone Club decks. This is a Rico Rex type design. instead of using a lot of weapon masters to hit the level up on your jacks, you're looking to use Bone Club and Wild Claw's Ferocity. And so, it does that. Outside of that, this does look to be a pretty typical Jax-based Jax Ornn style deck without the Ornn in it. Has a lot of early game drops that I like with the Omen Hawks and the Apprentices and the Favorite Artisans. It has a smaller Weapon Masters package than you would typically see. Jax Ornn typically plays 8 Weapon Masters. We only have 6 in here, but it does have a lot of those things that I really like to push in this format. It's got the early game plays. It has units that can survive Mystic Shots. The weapons carry on to give you value in the later points of the game. And then Seraphine does have a real issue with dealing with Bone Clubbed units. And so if you Bone Club a Ruthless Raider, you Bone Club a Glacial Saurion, they just don't have the removal tools to deal with that kind of thing. And that should really give you the kind of idea of stuff we're trying to chase after, right? If we're going to take a Bone Club and put it on a Glacial Saurion, we're fine to run into a big pile of Mystic Shots. We're fine to run into Hushes or whatever Viktor Aphelios is trying to use for removal. We don't want to see stuff like Vengeance. We don't want to see stuff like Concussive Palm. We don't want to see stuff like Homecoming. Don't want to see Tag Out, those things that can just come in and deal with a big unit. Because what you're going to see across the course of all of these decks is to where typically in Jax Ornn, you start to see a little bit more interactivity, right? You see things like Fish Fight. You see things like Entrancing Lures to help you come in and pick and choose how the combats are going to go. This just sacrifices that for raw power. You can put the Bone Club on any unit. You can hit that unit with the Wild Claw's Ferocity, and now you have this 10 power overwhelming unit coming at your opponent. 11 power, my bad, right? You get the +5/+5 from the Bone Club, the 6 on the cat. And so that's what we're trying to kind of do with this lineup, right? We're kind of hoping that we run into the removal suites that we want to see. And then also, if decks aren't quite as tuned as they should be at this point, we can just power through with our big and obnoxious overwhelms. So that's deck number 1. Deck number 2 is Vayne Ornn. This one does function a little bit differently than the Jax deck. This is much more of an OTK style deck, if you will. If you're not familiar with how some of these cards interact with the likes of Wild Claw's Ferocity, if the card says Grant, then the ability is going to carry over. So if we play a Steadfast Elk and it sees the equipment, it's granted Tough. If we then flip it with the Wild Claw's Ferocity, the unit maintains the Tough. Same thing, very bigly, if you will, with the Ranger Knight Defector. If you've equipped and the Ranger Knight Defector gets granted Scout, if we then flip with the Wild Claw's Ferocity, that Ferocity has Scout. So if you put a Bone Club on a Ranger Knight Defector and then you flip it into the Wild Claw's Ferocity, you're going to have that 11-10 Scout Overwhelm unit that you can ideally just come in and crush the game with. And so this deck does have a lot more just kind of big, high power burst OTK potential, given that you can do stuff like that with the Ranger Knight Defector, but the other big plays are going to involve tumbles out of Vayne and then Cataclysm. So where we can, if we don't have that huge, gigantic combo kind of turn going, we can maybe cast a Wild Claw's Ferocity on, say, Innovative Blacksmith. It still gets to keep the bonuses from the equipment, so we have an 8 attack Overwhelm unit. We attack, opponent blocks with something, they take like 5 damage. We can then Cataclysm the unit again into an opponent's, say, 1 health unit, get in for another 7. And so there's a lot of combos coming from the Cataclysms and the Tumbles, the big OTK style of things with our Overwhelm units. You can get the Scout attacks with things like Ranger Knight Defector. You can get the extra Anaka hits for the unit summons with the Darkened Spear. And then Ornn, always a fantastic to be attacking multiple times. And so to where the Jax deck is more of a board control style of deck, this one is more of an OTK style of combo deck. Last but not least, we have our final addition into the Bone Club mix, and this is Zoe Yumi. I'm pretty confident that of all of the potential Bone Club decks you could be playing, and I went through a lot of them, right? I tried to play Bone Club Kayn. I tried to play Blue Gwen Sejuani. That's a very interesting in terms of grant, right? So if you're using the Shadow Isles Cultist, it gets granted Lifesteal, which a lot of unit-based attacky decks just can't beat. You can also pick up that Demacian Scout Cultist by playing Kayn, but I wasn't happy with either of those, the Kayn or with the Blue Gwen. I started trying to look elsewhere. If you're trying to, use Sharesies in different decks, you have to look towards Targon and Bandle City, and Targon is what I was initially kind of drawn to. This initially had a touch more of an elusive feel to it with Esmith, because one of the major combos that you could do with this deck is play Zoe on 1, attack, that's 1 point of damage. You put a Bone Club on her on turn 3, attack, that's another 6 points of damage for 7 in total. On turn 5, you Battle Fury your Zoe. That is, what is that, like 8 plus, so much math. It's an OTK, it kills your opponent. And so I was kind of intrigued by being able to do that really high-powered draw with Zoe into Bone Club into Battle Fury, but at the end of the day, that was a little bit too high rolly for me to really ingest. But Zoe still incredibly strong, super strong 1-drop, wonderful place to attach a Bone Club or a Yuumi or a Darkened Lodestone. And then otherwise, we still get all of this really high-powered Forge-based game plan that you typically get out of Freylord. And so we still have access to Zoe, the good Freylord cards, the Wild Claws Ferocities kind of combos, and then Sharesies to pass around the various equipment. And so those are the decks. Those are what we're going to be doing battle with today. Hopefully the game plan works out to help us a little bit to maybe ensure we can get what we need to do for victory. We're going to come in and grab this pool party Zoe. You got to pay up on occasion. You got to pay the pay-to-win price. The pool party skins are far and away the best ones in the game. And so now that we've got pool party Zoe, we are ready for battle. I'm feeling good. I hope you are too. The Forge Club, the Rico Club, get in there. The Zoe Club, off to battles. Okay, pushing buttons, making our way through. There we go. Got those 2 wins. Still got the 2 buys. Feels nice. Let's see what happens. So we're guaranteed to get 2 wins, right? We can't. we can't have a 0-win event because we got the 2 buys. But man, my expectations are so low. Like it just. Across like all of these open events, like if you say go play Jax Ornn, like I could have been fine with that. I could have just said like right from the get-go, this is a short week, you're playing Jax Ornn, lock it in and look towards other things, and then maybe would have found like a Draven Scion deck, but it was just kind of meh how it all came together. But nonetheless, I'm happy enough to play against Nilah Twisted Fate. That's not that big of a deal. We'll leave this one up all of the time. As far as Thresh Nasus goes, this is a winnable match. Thresh Nasus does have a bit of issue with the big overwhelms. It's just a unit wall deck, but they have a lot of combos that just kill us. Getting Nasus on the board is very tough to deal with, and we can't stop the atrocity plan. But down here with Jax Ornn, I'm fine to play the mirror match style of things. The Bone Club can really take over these Jax Ornn style matchups, and so I think that's the one that we want to be leading up here. And so let's kick it off with Jax, see what happens. Ooh, I was worried, it's just I have the big vision that we're going to come out and be facing like the triple ramp deck, and it's going to be miserable. All right. Kicking it off with Jax Ornn. Not a particularly compelling start. We'll hang on to this Artisan to just make sure that we have some early game interactivity, if you will, and a reasonable enough mulligan. We can get some board presence with these bros. I'd really like to pick up a 1-drop and just go straight into the Bone Club plan, but you can't just do that all the time. Is this opponent even here? Thinking hard on what to do. He's probably out there trying to grab our lineup off the Runeterra.ar. Saying, what the fuck am I running into? Bone clubbing with Bust. It's the new video series. Alright, Sky Splitter turns up. Turns out that's not a 1-drop, but that's okay. I mean, this is still a pretty reasonable curve with the Artisan into the Castaway. We'll get the Forge thing in hand, whatever that's called, the Time and Dedication. Getting the Improvise off of the Castaway means our Sky Splitter will be castable. Feels pretty good. Have to see if he's going to be like herpity-derpity. It's a Jax directly off the Omen Hawk. Right, picking up our Ancient Yeti, a real fixture to a lot of the decks that we're packing today. Very powerful. And so as far as this goes, the Fish a Whack is a typical kind of like go-to equipment, but it's not as super important with this deck, given that the, what's your name? The Ferocity boosts the size of all of our units. And so I'm looking towards just going for the Wild Claw's Ferocity here. Give us the Fearsome thing, just to give us a little bit more opportunity for this combat. Now with Jax coming on the board, it's wild. Why did he... Oh, maybe he just drew in this turn, right? He Omen Hawked immediately into Jax, but drew Jax this turn. That makes sense. So I don't want to get too involved with this board. I think we're fine to just attack with our Weapon Master, get the Jax boost, try and get a good combat here. Like if he spends a Troll Chant or something on this combat, I don't really care. And then I just want to build into the Bone Club. So we'll keep our combat manas up. See how willing he is to just come in and crash with this Jax. We don't have to slam the Apprentice Bone Club this turn, but the opportunity is there. We'll stay away from Jax while he's out here quick attacking. We're going to have better combats next turn. Interesting. I wonder if he just has like a massive handful of combat tricks at this point. It's weird he wouldn't have played the thing before combat, but strange to see. So let's go this way. Let's just drop the Ruthless Raider. If he's got a fish fight for this turn, you know, fine, whatever. But I would like to drop the Bone Club onto the Ruthless Raider so we have the Overwhelm unit being the one out here crashing. And then we could still play combat tricks this turn. Time and Dedication can come in, and then we can either Sky Split or Troll Chant. Enjoy. Look at the meat. Look at the meat on that unit. I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised to see a Harsh Winds come in, given the way that this game is kind of sequenced out. But like his unit's just definitely not big enough to take down a Ruthless Raider, so that feels pretty good. You got a bird? Okay. Do we want to get anything else down this turn? Like, we really want to have 7 mana next turn so that we can play the Yeti plus the double combat trick. Looks like we'll have 2, 4, 5, 6. We can still play Omen Hawk and have the appropriate mana. Nothing wrong with having appropriate mana. That's what the game's all about. So what do we got? Blacksmith comes in, sure thing. He's getting pretty light on mana at this point. And so do we want to drop the Yeti now? I think so. You know, this is not a particularly strong combat for opponent with these tricks, and we're about to spend out on mana anyways, right? As we roll into this next turn. There's just not a ton of opportunities to get spells on the board, but my worry with this next turn is that he's just going to play Ornn. So I kind of want to get the amulet down on someone. Like maybe the Gertha out here as they call her, so that she can only fight with the stronger units here. What's your name, girl? My mother told me of Ornn. I swore it was Gertha. Herthy. It's something like that. This is why the people turn up for these videos. And oh, ferocity. Another perk to having the unit equipped. All right, battle step. Enjoy, my friend. All right, Jax is doing some big blocking for certain. Still pretty healthy chunk of Overwhelm coming in. He's got 6 health that he can spread out on our Overwhelms. So that should be 13 rolling through. We have the potential to get up to 15. Got there exactly. Planned it that way. Nice. GG. I was doing those finger maths in the back of my head, you know, as you all watched me try to figure out how much damage a Bone Club Battle Fury Zoe could do. Just know I was doing those maths in the back of my head. I wasn't saying it out loud. That girthy Hertha though coming through right at the end. Gotta like that. Alright, next one. I think he queued up Jack's Ornn again. Nope. Switches over. Says this is time for Nilah Janna. So let's see. I mean, we have the full combo in hand, the Bone Club Ferocity, but you don't have any really great units to go along with it. Typically in this space, like I just, you know, the high-powered draws that can come out of a deck like Nilah Janna come in and just overwhelm us. Like, I'm willing to typically hang on to like one card. Like, we can hang on to the Bone Club here, but we can't hang on to everything. And so we'll keep the club, see if we can't find a one-drop along the way. Omen Hawk turns up. Then didn't really want the second club. Want. Alright, Urchin comes in, discards Mystic Shot. Does he ever block our bird here? I think it's fine if he does. You know, we can't Bone Club until turn 4 anyways, and so we can just wait in that sense. We just need a 1 bank to be able to do that. So let's go ahead and add in the Apprentice. Next turn we can play the Blacksmith, and that's fine, right? We don't need a ton of stats stacked up on the Bone Club, and so making the Blacksmith a little meatier feels pretty good. And then the Defector turns up with bonus stats. He's an interesting target to be getting on board. I don't feel like we want to pivot to that. I mean, just playing this guy on turn 4 and attacking with it's okay. Like, the opposing deck is not particularly good at stopping it. Maybe that's the angle to take. We just give up on Bone Clubs for a moment. I'm not amped about the Shepherd's Authority in this space. It's like we don't currently have a Wild Claw Ferocity, and we might find ourselves wanting to just have this Blacksmith die and then put the Overwhelm onto the Ranger Knight Defector. So I think we want to go ahead and prevent some of this damage. We could prevent all of it, I guess. Are we really doing anything with these other units? I don't think so. Let's just keep our health total high. Like, as we start getting active with these Bone Clubs, as long as we have just like any unit to put a Bone Club on, it's gonna be fine. And then another combo, if you're not familiar with it, like should hopefully be safe. I just worry about attacking with the Defector. He blocks with the Mariner, and then has a Janna Whirlwind. The thing that you can do with these, if you're not familiar, is I can attack with both units. That's a normal attack, right? And then we can Cataclysm our scout unit. That counts as a scout attack. And then we can attack with it again, so we get 3 attacks in the same turn. I think we want to push towards this. So I'm going to just leave him at home. I'm going to look to drop the Bone Club onto the Defector, and then we're going to try and pull that off next turn. Interesting. Like, we have the Sky Splitter to protect this unit if we want, but I don't think we want. We have a pretty healthy life total at this point. The bummer is we don't have another unit to get this 3rd attack in with the Defector. I think it might be okay. We can just attack twice this turn and play Ornn next turn with the Cataclysm up. Let's see what happens. I mean, he's got to start blocking this thing, right? I think it's safe, and if it comes down to it, we can swap. We can put Bone Club onto the Defector to kind of pseudo heal. We lose out on our ability to Cataclysm if that comes down, though. I'm not particularly jazzed about that. But I was really hoping to get a triple attack in this turn.
We playing bilge rules, son?
I guess we're taking that Pull Shark off the board, huh? I guess so.
Where you going? Win.
Alright, so one of the really annoying things you'll come across, we'll see if it ends up happening here, is the opponent's ability to
Dead in their tracks.
cancel a Cataclysm with a removal spell. And so say we want to come in and
This is what good looks like.
Cataclysm a unit, say we want to Cataclysm a big Overwhelm into the Vikrosh, and then opponent has a Mystic Shot to kill Vikrosh, and the spell gets countered. And so have to worry about that a little bit. Opponent says that's too much. I'm not super pleased with how we played that game. That got to be a little bit awkward there, but it was enough at the end of the day. I kind of feel like we should have we should have just Sky Splittered onto our healer unit, whatever it was called. All right, so moving on to the next one, Nilah Twisted Fate, again, a deck we're willing to leave up. Swain Norra can be annoying. They tend to play 2 Disintegrates, 2 Scorched Earths, and then occasionally they have ways to blow up equipment, which can be kind of painful, but it's not an unwinnable match. They do have trouble when you play a unit that's big enough to block a Swain or big enough to block a Leviathan, and excuse me, we can do that with Bone Club. The Vladimir Katarina deck I'm kind of fine with. It's like Sunburn, but it has like a lot of Daybreak units in it, and then it tops off with the new Dragon. I haven't actually played the match. I know a lot of the pros are kind of high on this deck, but it just strikes me as being kind of like a mid-range garbage pile. And so we'll see how it goes against that one. I'm going to take the Norra Swain out of the equation just because it has those big single target removal spells. And we'll kick things off with Jax and see if our Bone Clubs aren't enough to stand up against the up against those units. I can try and pull it up real quick. I would like to see what's just kind of hanging out in that deck. Does he start with it? No, he starts with Nilah Twisted Fate. I think Buy Attack was the one that was really really hyping the what's it called? Hyping the Katarina deck. Yeah. So we'll pull it up.
Get the forge going. More air, more coals.
I've got it ready to go as soon as this is out of the way. All right, though, not a terrible start. We have the boosted Jax for turn 2. We have the combat tricks to protect him starting on turn 3. No complaints there. See if opponent drops a Nilah or something, and we get the huge shutdown for the turn. Sad day for you. Still gonna play Jax. If we pick up another like Omen Hawk or something next turn, I guess it doesn't quite fit, but if we find a 2-drop, we might want to play it. Probably don't. Getting this open attack in is nice though. Oh, this is the Akaido Nilah Janna. It's much more aggressively oriented. It's playing stress testings. They only play one. They only play one Sunken Temple, and then they try and play it like Burblefish, to where you're playing iterative improvements on the Windborn Mariners. I think we're okay in this space. We can just go big here. Oh, he's gonna let us get a unit on the board. This is a pretty big troll chant. No stat-based units here, which kind of sucks. I was hoping to get some bonus health on the turn. We can go Rake. We have a very overwhelm-friendly hand if we're able to rake into some of this stuff. Alright, he's spent all of his mana, so I'm pretty certain we're just going to win these combats. Troll Chant.
Hope you stretched.
Not bad. Ooh, we picked up a Wild Claw. I don't know if he can stop that. You might be able to throw like 3 cards on the Wild Claw, but hopefully it takes a whole lot of effort. Copies ours, interesting. That's an expensive unit. I did the mathematics on that one. Wild Claw for Alpha Wild Claw is very expensive. Interesting.
Who's next? Bring it on!
Looks like we got a lethal presented on board here, though. Nothing wrong with that. GG.
Gotta keep that light burning.
Keep that light burning, Jax. Good job. Okay. Now with Zoe Yumi. We can pull up the Akaido deck as well. Oh, he switched. Okay, so I can pull it up on the screen real quick. This is the buy attack version that he was going on about a couple of days ago. It's a an early game aggressively oriented unit like Sunburn with the 9 1-drops. Then it's got a bunch of Daybreak units, but no Leona, no Ravoon. It tops out with the Enraged Fire Spitter. Has the Might plus Fire Spitter combo along with multi attacks with Katarina and Vladimir as a nice board control element. And so. It had a pretty massive win rate, but all things considered, with Eternal, I'm not entirely convinced that the win rate's legitimate. as people like Buy Attack are out here running around in the space of Eternal, I'm just a little bit skeptical when they're playing against silver players in a lot of their games. But reasonable enough start here. I don't think we need to just kick in with the Apprentice. I think we might just get a better attack with the Favorite Artisan. But the thing with this turn is we can get the double bonus. I'm trying to think, like, how much do we really want to be, juicing up these Yumi stats? We can play Yumi on turn 3. And then switch into turn 4 and then still maybe have the Lodestone going. I think that's okay.
I just love your stories about Ornn, okay?
No attack's fine. Things like Ravenous Flock are a little bit annoying here. If we drop Yumi onto the Apprentice block and then he flocks. But it's probably worth the effort.
Devotion through battle. Devotion through battle.
I'll just take this 3. If we're not going to lose the unit, if we're just going to lose the unit, I'm not going to lose my flock at this point. Or lose our Yumi unit to the flock. So we can get everybody up to 4 health here. This is kind of nice. Apprentice can't attack, that's okay. So we can Lodestone the bird. It's going to make her a 3/3. Then we can forge the bird up to 4/4. Girthy Hertha here can get up to can get up to 4 health as well. So, I mean, it's kind of an intimidating board, but I think we're okay. Especially into a no block. It's going to be 2 flocks. Interesting.
Here, let me see that.
Not what I was expecting. So I'm leaning towards Yeti here. It's just bigger than all of his units. We'll end up taking like 4 or 5 damage this turn. And so it's like if he's able to come at us with a mighted dragon, then we're going to be hurting. That's for certain. But like he's just going to completely lose board this turn. Oh, he doesn't go that big.
This is hot, you know.
Kind of leaning towards this. Like, I'm fine to have the Yuumi get picked up and have to replay her. Like, she hasn't really done a ton up to this point. That's fine. But I don't want damage on our Omen Hawk. I don't want to have to be replaying that Omen Hawk equipment, whatever it's called. Now, this could be a good fresh target for the Yuumi. Like, you have to worry a little bit about like a Vladimir coming in here, but oh, I don't think it's that bad. So I'm looking to put Yuumi onto the Raider. He just doesn't have Vladimir at this point. And then we can boost the Ancient Yeti with our Lodestone. So we have the 2 units bigger than the Shield Breaker, capable of crashing in here. Not bad. So we'll see as we potentially roll around to the Harazi turn, right? We can potentially look to Harazi onto one of these. We can Harazi onto like one of our big overwhelms to give it protection in combat. We'll see if that comes about. This should be safe. Like if he's going to make a might play here, we have the Sharesies to move Yuumi. Yuumi is a little bit awkward in terms of shifting around stats. You have to be careful with her. It's like if you're moving a Bone Club, you know that you're going to be planting that +4 or that +5/+5 to the unit that already has the club on it. But when you're shifting Yuumi, like say Yuumi has granted +2/+2, and then she's a 2/2, she only leaves that +2/+2 on the unit. And then everything else shifts over. It's a little odd how Yuumi works with the Sharesies, but we still would have been safe in that spot, so that turned out kind of nice. Oh, I was going to pull up the Nilah Janna Akaido deck, but it didn't quite get together. All right, now this is the kind of thing that worries me, right? Over here to the left is a ramp deck. That's going to be the thing we have to ban. We just can't beat it. And then over here again, Thresh Nasus, it's winnable. It's not a super good matchup, but it's definitely a higher win rate matchup for us than playing against Ramp. And then the Vladimir deck in the middle, we just played against it. Kind of is what it is. Oof. All right, Jax. Let's get you into that red zone. Get you into that attacking thing everybody's talking about. All right, so we got a Bone Club. I think we definitely want to be starting with it. Like, it does open us up to just kind of losing to Ravenous Flock, but it might legitimately be our only way to kind of contend against the opponent's bigger units. And so I think we're kind of just kind of stuck keeping. But otherwise, this start's fine. It can combat with the early game attackers from the opponent fine. Curious if he just attacks, like if he makes an open attack here, I think that we end up just passing so that we can play Bird Bone Club next turn. But with him playing the unit, I think we want to get Girthy Hertha on board here. What's her name? I need to look at the Weaponsmith's Apprentice to figure out what her name is. Do you know you can do this? You can forge your unit without a weapon on it. It lets you come in and block 3/3s and have your unit survive at the end of the day. It's crazy. It's crazy how that works. So get her on board. Might as well just get these other dudes on board. We can look to play Bone Club a few turns from now. We're not attacking this turn. We have this nice defensive wall out here. Let's see what's up. So how do we want to do this? You know, if we take 2 mana into the next turn, we can do Raider Bone Club. Maybe this is just a Troll Chant turn. Troll Chant's not that great though. We're gonna lose all of our units, kind of regardless of how it goes. Maybe we just, instead of Troll Chanting, we just make another 3/4. See where that gets us.
You'll ruin the work. Clumsy work.
Kind of want to block with the bird. It's a lot of damage to stop. Like we aren't out here playing normal people spells, right? We're not out here dropping like harsh winds and stuff within our deck, and so I think we need to kind of just do what we can to prevent that damage. Now, getting mited at this point, that's on the scary end of the spectrum. There's not a ton that we can really do about that.
Tell me a story about
I worry about having Hertha just out here hanging out. But
nice. Could be nicer.
see what we can do.
Leave nothing standing.
It's just like if he comes in and dragons a unit, we're stuck with this favorite artisan out here with the 1 healther. I was like really considering just attacking with the artisan so that if he brings the flame spitter in, then we're not dead to a mite. But now he's down to 2 mana. We have to play this Troll Chant now so we don't lose our blocker. But this has potential to be okay. You know, has potential. If he has a Ravenous Flock, we're not dead just yet, right? If he Ravenous Flocks down the favorite artisan, we're kind of fine to live through that. Ooh, now this is tough. This is tough. We have the 6/6 Bone Club. Let's see. So that would be 12? If we go Wild Claw's Ferocity, that gives +6. And then he can just block with a 4, only take 8 damage. Like, I guess we're stuck having to play Jax. How much is this one though? If we hit one of the smaller units, 6 + 9 is 15, but he gets 2 blocks. Okay, we have to play Jax. So if he's got a stun bird, this is gonna suck a lot. But without a stun bird, I think we get the victory.
The Winter's Claw.
With like 24 overwhelm coming in.
Also for me.
Did anybody do the maths on that? All right, we got -20 rolling in. I don't think he has enough health here. He's got 6 left.
Fall, heretic.
Probably should have attacked with the apprentice. Like, as he has to put his big units onto the overwhelm, like he might have to block the apprentice with the soldier or something, and then we have the extra width of blockers the next turn.
Gotta keep that light burning.
But comboed him hard. All right, same deck. Let's see what this pool party Zoe can do. Not a terrible start. Like we got a little bit of everything in here. It really needs an equipment or something to pop off. I think it's probably fine to keep. It's just the blocks we want to be making with a hand like this, or we want to be up against a bunch of stuff like Boom Baboon decks, kind of, right? To where they're coming at us with a bunch of 2-1s and we're actually getting trades. We're just like never getting trades against this deck with the makeup of our hand like this. So need an improvise or a bone club or something to turn up.
Reality is just your mind crumbling under what it doesn't understand, silly.
And then, unfortunately for this hand, it doesn't. The Weaponsmith's Apprentice do not boost a Yumi,
Trundle picked
so
me. That's why Smith.
sad day there. There's the bone club. That's what we needed. So how are we getting through this turn? Next turn we just need a 1 bank, so we're probably just playing Sky Splitter this round. Okay.
Devotion to battle.
So we got to prevent some of this.
Let me
So we can do
focus.
something like that. Get the unit off the board, only take 3. And then next turn we can look to Bone Club onto Zoe. Sure.
It's hot.
She's still out here ready to block, and I mean, ooh, the ferocity turns up. That I don't think that changes things here. No, it is nice to get the bone club onto a unit and then be ready with the ferocity, but I don't think that applies here.
Forward in the name of the Solari.
We can still get a pretty massive attack in on our next attack token, right? We can drop Apprentice Yeti this turn and then ferocity next turn. It's probably short of the lethal, but some big potential there. You can always try and see what kind of nonsense you can hit off of a star chart as well, hitting a double stun or hitting a lot of strong plays out there. So we'll take the block. If he mites the Zoe, fine. You know, I actually feel much more confident in this situation if he's burning mites to take down Zoe, as opposed to burning mites to deal damage to our face. And so I would assume that with this this long pause, that the mite is on hand, and that's fine. I think that's actually a pretty big victory for us. So let's just get some more dudes on board. Looking at next turn, if we're not going to Wild Claw Ferocity and we do have Bone Club in hand, if we take a 3 bank out of, or is that what we need? We only need a 2 bank, so we can just play all of our units. So we can get Ruthless Raider on board. We can get Weaponsmith's Apprentice. She talk about Hertha? Only talks about Ornn. We're gonna find it. one of you lore nerds out there knows what I'm talking about. Probably spot on as far as the names of these characters. So I want to play the Yeti first. If he's going to drop another stun bird, I want the stun to go onto our Yeti and not onto our Ruthless Raider. And now we're going to be able to just drop the Bone Club on the Raider. Is this going to be an incoming dragon? I don't think... as it stands, we don't die to dragon.
Hello,
Vladimir.
Lord and Master.
It's a big Vladimir. So I think we still want to Bone Club onto the Raider. Right, he's going to be a 7 tough. So he is actually capable of blocking Vladimir next turn. Vladimir's stun thing isn't that great here either. Or his attack thing, right, just kills off all these units. So he can activate the Drain, but he's going to kill all of his bros in the process. And then we can still see, we got the star chart in hand. Might be able to pick up something nasty there. Yep, we're gonna have to hit on the star chart. Boom. It's better than the combat cook, right? Combat cook can only stop one unit here. Alright, he takes the draw for the turn. Fuck. 1 mana short. Yep. Alright, GG. Trying to think if we wasted any mana along the way. I don't think we overbanked at any point in that game. Although you can kind of change up how you drop your Yetis. Damn. Alright. On to Thresh Nasus. That's tough. I wonder how that would have looked if we had the opposite attack token. It's tough for me to kind of envision how those things go. Alright, Thresh Nasus though. We got a bird. I think we'd like to hang on to the blacksmith here. The few points of life gain can be pretty monumental in this matchup. And off to the races. Definitely like starting off with Omen Hawks though. It's like if they have one of these ridiculous draws to where they like herp derp a bunch of Ravenous Butchers onto the board, there's not a lot you can do about it. But if they have a more average draw that involves things like fading icons and a bunch of stuff that the Omen Hawk interacts well with, then that leaves us in a much better spot. Alright, Cursed Keeper comes in. We got the Butcher Friend. Rite of Calling. Can't do anything about that. And I think this is a safe damage to take. I don't want to just be like directly giving him the Slay right at the start when we have the combat trick in our hand. And so we can add Blacksmith now. Not a particularly strong selection. We'll just go with the Sandsworn Amulet. It does let us attack through like prey tokens and the like. And I'll advertise the combat trick. I think that's fine. I guess there's a world where that's technically not a combat trick, but I definitely don't like just making these trades against Thresh Nasus. Alright, Blacksmith number 2. Ooh, this is tough. Like this is this is the spot that you get when you're up against Thresh Nasus. If they don't have a Vengeance for next turn and we get the double attack with the Wild Claw, the game's typically just done. So we'll see. I definitely don't want the Blacksmith to get involved in combat, and I want to keep the Sky Splitter this turn. But I mean, this is it's a 7 power overwhelm that gets to roll through. It's a little short of the lethal, but it's gonna be clearing out the board. Party time. Party time. It feels good, doesn't it? Just slamming a giant ass unit on the board, getting the big scouty overwhelm attack in. It feels good. It feels good. I like it. It's me. Tingle in the loins, you know? Tingle right in there. Wouldn't be surprised to see a hate spike or something roll in. Yeah, but this is fine. Big meaty chunk of damage rolling through. We're pretty far out from in terms of getting blown up by an atrocity. It'll be interesting to see what champion he drew here. I was gonna say if he drew Nasus, we're a little fucked. But it just basically means that we die to atrocity now. So we can add the Yeti to the board. Can't block Nasus, but we can block this other stuff. And if he has his 2 of atrocity, then we lose. If he doesn't have his atrocity, then we win. Easy peasy. Now, oh man, it sucks so much that we're going to fall to. I was gonna say if we can hold out on this to. To where we can hush Nasus, then we could have maybe gotten out of that atrocity, but is what it is. We'll have to save that hush for next turn. Maybe we can get him that way. And then we want to rake, right? Have 2, 4, 7 mana. So he would get we could get to attack twice with the Yeti, or we could play the Bone Club and attack once. Like, we just need maximum damage, right? It doesn't matter what spells he has, right? If he has an atrocity, we die. If he has a vengeance, we die. But this is gonna, at the end of the day, be more damage. He gets more damage. We end up losing to like another a second Nasus if he has it, but kind of is what it is. All right, so that'll take him to 4. Apparently there is an atrocity here. Why wouldn't you just play it? what are you doing? Okay, good job. But that's how the Thresh Nasus match tends to go, and you'll find the same thing a lot with the blue deck, whatever the blue the Spirits Unleashed Slayers deck. It's very similar in the sense that if they hit their Nasus, it's kind of whatever, but. Or I'm sorry, if they hit their atrocity or if they hit their vengeance, their big interactivities, they tend to get you. If they have Spirits Unleashed, they tend to get you, but otherwise, you're fine. So same deal here. I'm fine to play against Aphelios Viktor. Again, a lot of our cards are kind of set up to be able to handle their removals, and then this. I don't know. I don't know why people are so hype about this Vladimir deck. This again, I knew it was a thing because I saw it pop up. Like if you searched Runeterra.ar by win rate, it popped up right at the top, and then by attack was going on about it and stuff. But I look at it and it was just kind of like that deck's garbage. And then as we come out here and play against it, the deck still feels like garbage. And so it's like I don't get it. I don't know. As we're out here playing like the Bone Club shares these decks, it's hard to trash on a Might deck when you're doing it, and like I just don't think the Might decks are ever any good, and so kind of is what it is. All right, kick things off with Jax. See what we can do. What are we leading with here? Vladimir, Katarina, sure thing. And so, you know, it's not horrible starting with Artisan into Blacksmith. It's just their units all are so much bigger than ours at the early stages of the game. I think it's just going to have to be okay. I'm kind of willing to pivot into the Omen Hawk into Bone Club curve. That might just be too greedy though. Like I was fairly on board with like Favorite Artisan since it does shut down a lot of their units. And then being able to boost the blacksmith, that's probably just the way we need to go.
Reporting in.
Now, I was going to say, this is another one of these spots to where if he just opens, we can just kind of roll with it, you know? But,
I will tell you.
you know, if he opens for 3, we can just pass and take the damage and go along with our day.
I'll do better
But
this
I think we gotta slow this down. I want to... who is the block here? We're losing our unit either way, but we can still block him in the future. I was going to say, this could have been another one of these turns to where we do put the time and dedication onto our unit. That's probably what we should have done. I'm usually a pretty big fan of that. 3/4s look pretty good on that board, especially with us having Troll Chant in hand. But did not do it. Feels like the game just falls apart at that point when we don't have our... Like, if we had our unit still on board and then we're sitting here with the blacksmith and then rolling into this next turn now being able to Troll Chant. Let's take down his good unit. We don't have good blocks anywhere else. The might comes in. Well, this prevents a very significant chunk of damage while still letting us keep the blacksmith on board, get some of these forges rolling as well. And we do have to note with this hand, we've got Sharesies in hand at this point, so we can potentially shuffle around the Bone Club on the following attacks.
I'd never keep my guests waiting.
So much for that thought. Ooh, and he takes the damage. That's kind of nice. Potentially get to the Wild Claw kill. So who's the play here? It's got to be the apprentice, right? And then the way we're going to... It's like we have to win this with Sharesies. And it's like we need 2 of them, right? But I think this is probably the way to go. We'll put the apprentice down. Say if he adds more cards, we can follow up with the combat cook after that. Really need to hit something like Overwhelm. Scout Rake is fine. We have the ferocity in hand.
I'll do better this time.
Who would dance?
Sequencing seems like it'll kill the bird.
I'm Lord and
The Vladimir hits before the support, right? So doesn't the bird die? No? For each ally on my right, deal 1 and then drain? Why didn't the Vladimir thing happen to kill the 1 health bird? Is what it is, I guess. So how much are we only going to have 7 mana next turn? We take the 6 hit off of Vladimir. That's too much. 6, 10 exactly. But it's like if we move the Scout Rake, it's 1 short as well.
Plenty to go round.
This is hot, you know.
Well, looks like that's as good as it's going to get. So we did keep our scout unit though, so we can go for this. No flocks, please. Silence. It's a bit of a bummer.
Enemies of day will fall.
So do we still attack here? Probably not with the apprentice, but probably do with the Wild Claw. His units can't survive it. And that presents a lethal. Okay.
Fall, heretic.
Flame Spitter takes us to 1. We'll drop in Jax. He's cheap. We have the way to protect him in hand. Hopefully that's enough. I mean, we didn't get insta-killed this turn, and so maybe we're still in it. We just die to a Might anyway across the board, so I think this is okay. His unit dies. We can replay Jax after the fact. Probably rather counter-strike though, right? He's not going to have any way to deal damages to him.
You're gonna wanna watch this.
There's only one true light.
Okay.
Any takers?
You cannot sway me.
Scout and Jax rolls through. We should be good from here. Sunhawk gets the stun onto Jax. That's okay. Sandsworn Amulet's just enough. He doesn't have any cards in hand. But we have the Light of Acacia as well. Oof! That was a cheek squeezer, boys. A classic
Winning never
cheek
gets
squeezer. All right, Vayne Ornn. Interesting seeing the Moonlit Afflictions roll through. Kind of scary. I don't want to see our opponents playing interactivity, right? say keep that nonsense out of here, please. But reasonable enough early start. I do typically like going for Bone Club openers against Aphelios. They just don't have a lot of great answers to the big unit. They can come in and block it, but it's not spectacular blocking. I mean, we should probably just hang on to this Ruthless Raider and then look to Bone Club 2 turns from now. And so we'll see if any of our +2/+2 units turn up right away. Just a ferocity. All right.
The winter's claw.
Got to assume that this Ruthless Raider's dead, but given that we have the ferocities, I think that we can just end up bone clubbing these bone clubbing the birds, and then Wild Claw ferociting and punching in that way. I think that should be safe. And then we're very close to the lethal with Cataclysm. That summons? Yeah. Not a bad summons.
I'm here in Jana's name.
Mariam rolls in. He picks up a Calibrum. Sure thing. I'm going to pick up a big ol' attack. Send it. Just send it, you know. What's wrong with the 12 power overwhelming? Nothing. Nothing's wrong with that. Alright, he's going to have to make a pretty big investment in this thing. Not certain how he's even supposed to remove it. Going for stuns. The thing with stuns, is they don't stop a cataclysm. So we'll have to see how this comes together. Is that a unit? Oh, he's going ahead and doing the gravitum. Okay. So I'm kind of curious if he's ever able to just drop a unit small enough. Like, I think that we can just go for the second ferocity next turn. And so I'm going to add this massive apprentice. We're going to drop a massive innovative blacksmith. We'll do the second Wildclaw ferocity next turn. And then I think we're good to go.
Nice. Could be nicer.
I think we're good to go, Fam Jam.
Our path is fixed. Now we must walk it.
So Aphelios gets the flip. The Moon Boy ready for action. But we got the birds, you know. We got the birds. What's this even the scary thing? I guess if he needs a silence does quite a bit of work.
More air, more cold.
All right, so attack number 1 rolling in.
Feel it too.
Again, we're gonna try and get this cataclysm in. You have to worry about him killing off his own units as the real pain point for any of this stuff. I'm not certain if his deck is capable of doing it. I think it's safe to just still go ahead and slap. We got the we have the Vayne in hand. And so as we roll into the next turn, if we really need to, we can play Vayne, get the tumble, and then tumble one of these Wild Claws as well. But let's see if he's able to kill off the Moon Boy. See? There it is. There it is. So we'll have to try it another way.
The sun rock got me good.
You got to imagine you're in a pretty good space, though, when an opponent has to spend 2 of their burn spells on their own Aphelios. At least that's how I imagine it.
Monsters still lurk in Demasia's every shadow.
All right, I think we just won, right? Pretty certain. Says GG. Well played. Mark it a W for the Wild Claw.
A sentinel's work is never done.
Sentinel's work's never done, bro. GG. All right, back in the queue. So what do we got? Got a ramp deck. Got to get that out of here. And so as far as these go, we played against Jax Ornn. That's kind of in the whatever space. The Teemo decks, again, they have that touch of removal, kind of like the Nasus deck, to where they tend to play 1 or 2 Atrocity, or they tend to play 1 or 2 Vengeance. But the big difference between Teemo and the Nasus deck is... oh my god, we just keep a... did we just keep a classic Weapon Master start? Oh, it doesn't feel as high powered as I want it to be, but whatever, I guess. But no, the big difference is when we're trying to make that big final overwhelming based attack, and you're attacking into a 15-15 Nasus, it's very tough to actually deal any points of damage. But if you're attacking into a 15-4 Tristana, then you can still get in that giant chunk of damage. And so the matchups, you know, not exactly the same thing, but I typically feel a little bit better playing against Teemo Tristana than playing against Thresh Nasus.
Don't you dare interrupt me, kin.
I just love your
So let's see. I'm not convinced that he open attacks next turn, right? We did just pick up the Omen Hawk, so we have the potential to get the Hawk on board to block the Teemo. But we'll see how he takes it. If he opens, it's whatever. We can play the Blacksmith, but if he doesn't open, then we can get the Omen Hawk on board. well, we can get the Omen Hawk on board, but it's not big enough to battle with Teemo. That's gonna have to be a job for Jax. I think we want to just prevent the damage anyways. This Omen Hawk's not really doing anything. So I'm going to Omen Hawk, will Jax, and then next turn I'm going to Time and Dedication and Entrancing Allure and try and take the Teemo off of the board. Just get this really meaty Jax up and running. And then this is one of these spots to where, you know, even if Jax fails, if Jax comes down and dies, we do have double forges onto the Light of Acacia. And so, you know, it's not as painful if he does come in and fall. You still have that very good equipment running around. So we'll get the Teemo out of the way. Now we have built into this Bone Club Ferocity Jax kind of play. And so get you very likely to get him flipped. I guess Jax is dying to Pokey Stick now, and that's fine. Buster Shot, even better.
Firepower solves everything.
So how do we feel about this Tristana? She comes in at 4-4. My Bone Club. Do your thing. Say, I'm bigger than that. I'm not scared of that Yordle. I ain't scared. So what's the worst that can happen here? We want to block this, right? Because we're just going to play the Ferocity next turn.
You're gonna get burned.
I think it's safe. So it's not going to be lethal by any means, but it does, you know, kind of set the opponent on the back foot here. In terms of he's got to start having an answer to this Alpha Wild Claw. And I mean, it may be just blocking with Tristana and playing another Buster Shot. Very curious if he's going to be able to build up the board to fight through this. But this strikes me as better than just dropping these smaller units on the board that can't like positively attack into Tristana. Although she is big enough to kill our Wild Claw now. Gonna be counting on you, Ruthless Raider. you're gonna have to put in the work. Maybe that was too greedy. I don't know, man. Like we could have just kicked off with the unit and then. So this way, I mean, we die to Atrocity here. With the 8, we die to Atrocity this way as well. So let's just block this dum-dum. See if we can't get some more units on board, because we're not getting there otherwise. So if he's got the Tristana Atrocity, it kind of is what it is.
Fight or die.
Thinking on it awfully hard. I have to I have to feel like our health total is about to fall rapidly. But we'll keep at it. Sometimes they just don't have it. Has it. Alright, GG. Yeah, I don't know. Like, so much of that matchup is just about controlling the Tristana, and I don't know. It's like we could have gotten the units on the board. He's probably not gonna block. Like if we just open attack with the Bone Clubbed unit and then play more stuff behind it so that we have a blocker for Tristana on the next turn. We probably just got too greedy with that. That's tough. But reasonable enough start here. I definitely like Bone Clubs in this space. We can attack with Jacks on 2 pretty safely. We have this kind of 2-2-2 draw of Jacks into the Artisan, into the Sky Splitter. I think this is fine.
Kindle, did you wander off again? More air,
See if we
more coals.
immediately run into Jacks.
Sword, staff, fish, nothing speaking to me. Weapon roulette.
Nothing. No 2s.
You can fix anything with anything. I'll prove it.
It's nice. Could be nicer.
A broken thing is a waiting thing.
So I'm curious how good we are just to go big here, right? As we looked at that previous attack, he doesn't have a Sky Splitter, right? You block Jacks here 100% of the time if you have Sky Splitter. I'm curious about what we can do on this next turn to where we're just going to Bone Club the Artisan, and if it's then going to be safe to attack with Jacks. Maybe not, but Jack's attack is going to be safe 2 turns from now when we make the big one with the Wildclaw Ferocity, and so we'll see where that goes. The downside to this angle is as we put the Bone Club down on the Artisan, then he's able to just block with the Weaponsmith's Apprentice. It doesn't feel spectacular. So maybe we have to just kind of pivot out of that for a moment. We can add the Castaway in here. Quick attack is extremely good. Still helps us level up our Jacks. Jacks doesn't need a ton of help leveling up in this space, but it's not nothing, you know. Definitely glad we didn't just run Bone Club into that shit. That's not. You don't want to see the weapon masters come on board as you're considering dropping your Bone Club.
Found some flotsam.
Okay, can't survive our Jacks through that. That's fine. We don't have anything else to do with our mana. I'm just going to go ahead and drop the Light of Acacia back down. I don't think he ever really wants to hit the Light of Acacia with his destroy an equipment thing, but gives him a target, you know.
Burns bright in our hearts.
Had loggerheads, eh?
It's like the Sky Splitter is just so short on all of our combats. It's kind of a bummer. Oh man, is he gonna have the second one to survive this thing? Alright, so the big concern starts to be Ornn at this point. Again, I mean, there's just like not a ton we can do about this stuff. We're pretty far behind at this point. We can make the ferocity, but it's not big enough for the stuff that we're facing down on board.
Tell me a story about Ornn, Hertha.
Once long
So it's like we're stuck just getting these shitters on the board and kind of hoping. It's like we can't invest in very heavily into the equipment because he's got the removal in hand. Kind of a bummer.
Not even I know what I'm cooking up.
Kind of a bummer.
Here, let me see that.
So So we'll just keep dropping stuff, I guess. Gonna have to look to
Don't you dare interrupt
to get like a visible Wild Claw's Ferocity on this next turn, and then play a fresh one on the turn after that. Like I don't entirely know how we're supposed to do it beyond that. Very strong with Entrancing Lure, assuming we don't die here. Like I think we can deal with Ornn. His Ornn shouldn't be flipped. I don't think he's had an 8 attack strike at this point.
I will be worthy, as my ancestors before me.
So let's say, what's this hook in our 5/5? I think we're okay with the trade. So how's this going to go? Right, we need 2 units. We can just re-equip something with this combat reel that's about to go, because we don't actually care about the units that are on board. And then we do want to have all 3. So we've got a combat reel, a Fix 'em 5,000. The big concern is like, well, we might be able to get out of this okay. This just happens, that's fine. I'm gonna put the combat reel on our smaller unit. We'll see if he drops a weapon blaster. Whatever thing is called, see if he drops a weapon blaster. Doesn't seem like he's going to. And then we just have to spend the mana at this point. So the Entrancing Lure goes to the Artisan. How much is this? 16, 18? No, we're not even at lethal. So we'll see what happens in terms of there being like a the spell coming down now. My kind of thought with this point is like, I know that all of his stats are devoted to the within the amulet, but that's just kind of the way that we have to approach this. Now, it's like if he's got a Harsh Winds, it just kind of is what it is. We're not beating Harsh Winds at this point. We just like seriously have to have something go right. So like, this strikes me as about as right as we can ask for. Right, we were going to be sending like 19 Overwhelm into this stuff. It's just not enough. Like Harsh Winds aces us, Combat Tricks aces. Like this is a very struggling spot to be in, but it's like we fell behind in terms of mana, and we can't, like, the big thing in terms of us being able to beat Jack's Ornn is getting Bone Clubs on the board. And if he's got the Explorer thing to smash a Bone Club, and we just get smoked. Should probably just be upper right. He's of his 6 cards in hand, 8 of them win the game, and any 10 that he chooses to play just finish it off. But he wants to think about it. That's his prerogative, I guess. All right, let's get out of this. GG. Okay, man, the money round's coming up. Got her back against the wall. Got to see what we can do. The 2 losses. Whew. Scary stuff. But that's tough. Like, I was curious how this format was going to pan out in terms of explorers. I think you need to be playing some amount of them. There's just so many high-powered things that it's nice to be able to stop. But where I start talking about like the Vladimir deck that I don't think is very good, Like, that's kind of like stage one of a deck to me. Like, if you look at that Vladimir deck with the mites in it, if you look at the Vi Draven dragon deck that has like mites and Kato the Arms and Explorers maps in it or whatever it's called, like that's stage one of the deck. And those decks never have Explorers in it, right? And as the deck becomes more refined, as people say, okay, the Explorers map sucks, the Vi is too all-in-y, I try and attack with this stuff and I get super all-in on my combo, then the opponent goes LOL Vengeance, then the deck kind of like morphs a little bit into, say, like the Rumble version, right? So Rumble Draven's running around, still has the dragons in it, but it has the reckless attacker thing to get the free attack kind of card, so you can multi-attack with Rumble, and then, you know, Might Rumble is always good. It gives you a little bit of a safer plan B, and you're not just all in on that singular unit. And like the next iteration of that is when you start deciding if you're going to play cards like Explorers, right? So you have that one. As far as that deck goes, you're not, right? You're not going to play Explorers in your very combo aggro deck. But as you look towards other decks, say like Jack's Ornn, then that's where the space for that really kind of starts to make itself apparent. But as far as this goes, fine to play against Nilah Janna. All of our decks are reasonable against that. Jayce Lux is not very good for us. You can maybe pull off some kind of Bone Club shenanigans, but a lot of that match, the match is not good. But even beyond the match being not good, the more not goodness is going to come from how many Hex Obliterators they're playing and their access to Hex Obliterator. And so we're not going to find out. Again, like Nilah Janna's kind of like what we're really okay to be playing against, and then things like Tristana was, you know, it should be fairly fine. But moving into this, we need to find some more early game stuff to do. I'm going to hang on to the Elkin and then take a harder mulligan, see if we can't find an equipment to put on it or an improvised unit. Found some more cheap bros, which is kind of cool, but do need to land that equipment. So I'm going to kick off with the Elkin. I intend on opening here. I'm going to say we'll find out what turns up. Darkened Spear is kind of interesting. We're just gonna make a big one, you know. I'm gonna drop the double apprentice, and then we'll drop the spear next turn with all of the bonus stats on it, and see if we can't shut down the majority of his board with this really boosted unit. I don't know how many times I'm gonna call this deck Nilah Janna. Like, I'm sorry, Steve. You, I know, Twisted Fate is out here partying and stuff, but just after 2 months of playing against Nilah Janna, this deck is just so Nilah Janna to me. Curious how his hand shaped up. It's very, very odd against these decks to see them just run out the Mariner on turn 2. It's not what they really want to be doing. Now this should be a pretty huge shutdown on the entirety of his game plan. Nilah not really being able to attack into the Elkin. We have these good blocks still in front of the Urchins. I don't think he can be particularly happy about this. And so as it stands with our hand and everything, I think if we can just get this game to grind on, we're going to be completely fine. And so, you know, throwing away the Weaponsmith's Apprentice in front of the Mariner when opponent is at 20, it doesn't feel spectacular, but, you know, between having the big Elkins that he's going to have no answer to and the Combat Cook curving into Ornn, like, I think this is going to be one of these games to where, as long as he doesn't come out and do something really obnoxious, we're going to be completely fine. Yeah. Bit of a bummer, but I think we do like seeing the get excited go towards the unit as opposed to our face.
What is joy to you, brother? True joy.
Being here, dancing in all the beauty of life.
All right, well, looks like the big elusives plan is what's going to be coming at us from here forward. I think we're okay. This doesn't seem bad. See what turns up. Battle Fury? We haven't drawn Battle Fury yet today. It's kind of awkward as we're making these Anaka attacks and it's not having the units turn up, but they'll be fine. Is he gonna get us? Is that burn plan gonna get there? Like, we're short on the Ornn, right? That's what's pretty painful, is we haven't been able to get a 8 power attack in. Cataclysm should change the story. If we don't get burned out here, then we're gonna be in good shape.
Name's Ornn. No further pleasantries needed.
All right, fellas. You know what I need you to do at this point. You got to start squeezing them cheeks. You got to get them tight. Opponent gets a 3-draw next turn. Now, he has already played a bunch of burn, right? He's played 2 Get Exciteds at this point. And so, I don't know the exact burn suite that they play, but it should be kind of tough to hit. Now, he does have like 100 slipstreams in the top of his deck, so, you know, there's very real possibilities that we're going to see slipstream into slipstream and a bunch of that nonsense, but squeeze them. What more can you ask for? Slipstream number 2. Slipstream number 3. You just gotta imagine, like, if your removal suite is like 3 Mystic Shot, 3 Get Excited, 3 Janna Whirlwind, like you've already played 2 Get Exciteds. It doesn't leave a lot left for you to actually be drawing. And so I don't know what the percentage chance for us is to dodge, you know, 5 points when he gets to draw that many cards, but it's like one of those situations in poker as to where, say like you're coin flipping somebody, but you're the one with the made hand. Like it always feels better to be the one with the made hand as opposed to being the one on the draw. Like, even though you know that it's a coin flip, like you having the hand that's actually good always just feels a little bit better. All right, let's see how this one kicks off. I'm going to lead out with the Omen Hawk. Next turn, we'll look to both Zoe and Apprentice. Not going to open attack here. Zoe should definitely be able to get in. I'm curious if opponent even drops units at this point, but I think we want to be on this weaponsmith plan. I want to get the blacksmith on board. This is going to be super awkward if we play Ruthless Raider and he's like, LOL, it's my Windborn Mariner. I don't want that to happen.
Hey, which way to spiritual fulfillment?
All right, combat damage is in. And Girthy Hertha turning it back up. I think we want the combat reel on this one. He's gonna be able to block with pretty much all the units in his... Well, I guess blocking with all the units in his deck isn't entirely accurate, but we have a very mana-heavy hand. Like, it doesn't look like a mana-heavy hand, but if we want to be able to share these and then star chart into a unit, and then the Artisan coming down and generating another spell, like, I think getting out in front of what the opponent's doing is going to be positive. So I'm going to lead off with Star Chart. I want to see if we can't find the snake, the Danger Noodle. It doesn't turn up, but I think we're still okay in terms of mana. So I'm going to take the Messenger, and then we're just going to open attack. Like, we've got this Sharesies, so we can Sharesies the equipment over onto Zoe. And this is going to look like a pretty good combat. Steve rolls in. Okay. Sucks to lose the units and stuff, but we've still got a lot of refill in hand. So we'll lead out with the Artisan. We're going to add in the Raider. Going to look to combat reel the Raider. And then see what we can do in terms of getting the Overwhelm attacks in. Just like you're out here playing Warden of the Tribes against this deck, right?
Let him think it's
Exactly.
luck.
You can take it slow. Come out with the messenger first and see what turns up. I think we're still on board. We have the mana to play the messenger and the combat reel, and then if we need to play the Tellstones in combat, we're fine. Like as it stands right now, he can't stun our Ruthless Raider. Twisted Fate's already on the board. Now I think we just go all in on the Raider. Then on next turn we can look to have access to Yeti plus combat reel.
Winter's Claw.
Seems reasonable.
Anything helps.
Is Twisted Fate gonna flip? He's getting close. He's up to 7. He might be able to gold card us on his next attack. I think the thing to watch out for, like he's gonna do Twisted Fate shit this turn. Fine, like whatever. Next turn we can hush Twisted Fate before we attack, and then we shouldn't have to worry about gold cards running in.
Blue as the serpentine.
I think it's gonna be okay. We'll have 18 Overwhelm. The highest health he should be able to get is 6. Seems okay. We math that right. We got 18 Overwhelm into 6. Should be able to deal 12 damage, assuming we don't die. 11 is kind of a big ask. I guess the path to victory here is that 6 points of burn onto the Ancient Yeti.
Fresh start. Just looking for a sign.
Hold it, partner.
Alright, Fame Jam, see what we can do. Didn't draw a combat trick, bit of a bummer. Alright, here they come. If he's got 6 points of burn, we lose. Otherwise, I think we win. He's casting a lot of stuff. That's not what you want to see. That's not good. Holy fuck. Holy fuck. I guess that makes up for the burn that he didn't have last game, huh? I guess that makes up for it with the triple get excited mystic shot. Damn. Somebody's out here being serious. Alright. Next battle into Tristana. See what we can do. So what's the start look like? We do have one of these Weaponsmith's Apprentice stacks on the odd attacks. I think that's okay. Do we want to keep the Innovative Blacksmith as like a turn 4 play? Probably not. Let's just look for combo cards. Like if we're going to be leading out with this Bone Clubbed unit, we want ferocities and stuff.
Kindle, did you wander off again? More air, more
All
cold.
right, getting that damage in. See if we get the big combo draw this game. Get the we got the Battle Fury that we forgot about, and so got to see how these things come together. Now with this dum-dum hitting the board, how do we feel about that with our Apprentice not having Overwhelm? I think I'm okay to just kind of slap damage into this thing. We do have the ferocity in hand still. Let's just pass and keep going this way. Like, if the extent of what the opponent's going to be doing is blocking our unit and then replaying the minion, I think that kind of lets us build up in a fashion that we want to be building towards. Now, I feel like the turns have tabled a little bit with this triple apprentice.
That's why Smith. All right, furballs, attention! Kindle, did you wander off again?
So we're going to stop here. And then we'll look to both Bone Club and Ruthless Raider. And then next turn,
It's nice.
we can get the. Well, we probably don't even want to Ruthless Raider, right? All right. Well, I mean, how? I don't, it's just it is what it is. That's the way it's gonna be. Like we can still fight on. We can look to see what we can do with the Wild Claw's ferocity, but the explorers are probably just gonna be the day. It's the only way I can see this being remotely close to a victory is to Wild Claw's ferocity next turn. We're just so dead. We're so far out of this. It's like we have to Wild Claw's ferocity and then just have it go right. Yeah, it's such a bummer. Like the two games that we've gotten completely annihilated today have been at the hands of explorers. Just brutal. But I mean, I think this is it, to where we have to crash in with the Alpha Wild Claw, and then we need another big overwhelm on one of the upcoming turns. There's like matching unit for unit's not going to do anything. So we do have the other overwhelm in the Ruthless Raider. We could potentially pick up something like Battle Fury. We could pick up another big equipment. Sharesies could be something here. It's just such a bummer to have it fall like that.
Don't you dare interrupt me, Kin.
I just love your stories.
So we got the 2 blocks for the bigs. Have to do this. Guess the Wild Claw has to block something as well. I don't want to fall to 1. You die to... that's tough. Let's be real. Like, you die to the 1 damage ping followed up by a 1 more damage. But this gets, like, the 3 health off of the board. I think that's all we can really ask for at this point. So now we're going to Ruthless Raider.
Fight or die.
We're going to Lodestone. We can roll into the next turn. We can look to Time and Dedication onto the thing. Make this attack. It's barely lethal. You can shift the Sharesies over for an additional +2 attack. And so if he makes some kind of like obnoxiously terrible thing, you know, if he only blocks with his minions, we can maybe get in that way. Is that? Oh, that's a pie toss. So we're just dead after this, right? Might as well cast the spell to see what happens, but yeah, we're dead. Oh, get off this. All right, GG. And so yeah, I mean that's about what I expected out of this event. You know, my expectations were exceptionally low. It's just like I don't know how I feel about the way that they did this. Like I'm completely fine with there being back-to-back opens, and I'm completely fine with there being back-to-back opens starting the weekend directly after the set's release. So the way this was the set was released, then we have the Eternal Open, then we have the Standard Open. But it's just like such a shit show in terms of like, what do you want to actually prepare for? Like, if you're wanting to prepare for Worlds, you have literally no reason to actually play in this event, right? You may be one of those people on the cusp of Worlds points that affects like 15 people, but in that case, you can probably just bring your lineup from last season and be completely fine and just come out here and run with it and then actually prepare for the standard event. But if you're out there trying to prepare for the standard event on the ladder, like if you go and look at the like currently most played decks in the standard ladder, it's a bunch of fucking nonsense that happens every time Eternal season rolls around, to where Lurk is the most popular deck, and then Hecarim Zed is the second most popular deck, and then some kind of like weird Volibear deck is the third most popular deck. It's because like once all of the competitive community leaves standard to go play Eternal, you just see this like weird nonsense turn up. And so you have to decide, okay, do I want to play in the Eternal meta, to where essentially, you know, what happens with the release of a new set and the new cards, you go into the Eternal meta and you're like, oh cool, well I want to take the decks I'm familiar with and try these new cards in it. So you'll play Jax Ornn, you'll put the new card in it. You'll play Aatrox Vayne, you'll put the new card in it, whatever. And then once that's done, you decide, okay, well, I see things other people are doing, right? I see this interesting Vi deck, I see this other interesting deck, I want to give that a try. And then after that kind of like 5 or 6 days, the meta has a bit of time to kind of shape up, and then that gives you the time to kind of like figure out what the meta is going to look like and then really get a feel for the format. But with the open coming this fast, I'm fine with that if the follow-up open is going to also be the same format. And so I think that Riot has this like major concern about the competitive integrity of these Worlds qualifiers and their you know, standardness, right? And so to me, it's ultimately the space to where I get the sequencing of the patches. You have the set release, that's fine. You go into the next set. The balance patch in the middle month is when the main Worlds qualifier happens. And so I understand wanting to have the balance patch tied in with that. So if something gets completely out of whack with the format, then you have the balance patch to fix it. And with that tying into the kind of premier open, if you will, then that makes kind of sense. And then the variety patch comes out next, and then the variety patch shakes up the meta. You get to go and play Eternal for funsies and then move on. But when you have like Eternal relevant in terms of the open, but it's only going to be here like a gauntlet, right? It's only here for 10 days and then it completely goes away. Like it feels like a complete waste of the variety patch, and it feels like a complete waste of the Eternal season. And so like it feels like if the Eternal Open right now was kind of the warm-up event to the actual Eternal Open next week, that would make a lot of sense to me, right? It's like as you try to prepare for the kind of main open events, you have that weekend of Ruthless Rumbles, which is highly competitive. And then I would argue that the Ruthless Rumbles are actually more competitive than these opens are. But, you know, with like the shift that happened and Riot's, I feel like Riot's major concern is the competitive integrity of Standard and these Worlds events, and it just kind of like fucks it up for everyone else that isn't within that like, you know, 100 people across the world that are actually like Worlds contenders. And so it just, I don't know. So it's like for me, this month just feels like kind of a complete waste, right? The way that it's going to go is we got in our like 3 or 4 days of brewing for the open. Now we played the open and it's done, and Eternal is just completely done for the month, right? Eternal doesn't matter for another 3 months. Now we're going to play Standard for 4 days, 5 days, and then jump into another open. And then there's just like nothing. You have to enter that void of, well, the set doesn't come out for 2 weeks, so grinding the Standard ladder doesn't matter, but the opens are already passed, so there's nothing to play for there. You can go in the gauntlets and play freeform and stuff, and it's just, it feels like they've just done this all wrong. And so hopefully as we enter the next competitive season, these things will get kind of fixed out. The way that I ultimately think things should go and the way that things are interesting are you have the set release, you play Standard, that's fine. Then the variety patch comes out, you play Eternal. Eternal, you know, feels like a big shakeup, right? Since you haven't played it for 3 months and you have all of these new cards to play with. And then after that Eternal season, you have the balance patch come out within the end of the month for that last month of Standard. And then that Standard feels like fresh and different since you have both the variety cards in there and you have the balance patch cards in there. But you know, if your major concern from Riot's standpoint is the competitive integrity of that middle month standard event, then you're just kind of fucked in terms of what you're actually able to do. And then you run into nonsense like this as to where, you know, the time for innovation just doesn't exist. The time to figure out the new things and the ways to attack the meta and the way to actually go after it just don't exist. And you're just kind of stuck saying, okay, well, I'm going to play the Eternal decks that I played last season, and hopefully that's good enough. And then, you know, if 2 or 3 decks creep out of this open, then people will know about them for the next Eternal season, and maybe you'll play that deck 3 months from now. Like, it's just, it just feels like a complete and utter waste of a month, and it's a real bummer to me. But nonetheless, as far as the Open goes, that was more wins than I expected to get, so we had that going for us, and that's gonna do it for us today. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way, and you had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.